coming up on the Lead Ministry Podcast.
The current reality is we are hijacking our number one discipleship vehicle through the local church, which is called Sunday school. We are hijacking that. What's broken? A Sunday school is being hijacked for 10 weeks. Now, how did we get here? Because the executive pastor's wife, who used to be a choir teacher, really wants to get that choir itch.
Now your host, Josh Denhart.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lead Ministry Podcast. We are making our way through the month of January. Now, I'm grateful that you're here. I think what we're talking about in this little three-part little series is actually extremely important. My name is Josh Denhart. I am here with my co-host, Vance Martin, and we're talking about what Vance is calling the progress spiral. We want to make progress, but we kind of like move in this wonderful repeating circle. And so last time, Vance, we talked about, okay, let's do an evaluation, right?
Yeah, the probing. That's
probing.
The first action. You got to probe. Yeah.
You got to probe.
And we talked about, too, the three cultures that we're looking at, too, that we overlay this on. So We're not just doing everything. Just take it with your kids, with your volunteers, with your parents. Pick one of those lanes.
Those are very important lanes. Now, for me, my main thought almost all of the time was volunteers, because I just felt that if we dialed it in with our volunteers, that was going to matriculate down to kids and to parents. But those are the three big people groups that we need to look at. But the funny...
Well, I was going to say one thing. You hit on something right there, and I think maybe we should expound on, double click on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, every children's ministry person has three cultures that they lead: kids, parents, and volunteers. And I would say there is an order that is correct. And it should be volunteers are primary, parents second, and kids last. Here's what I mean by that. You go, well, I'm a kids person.
Yeah.
When a children's ministry leader focuses on kids, everybody suffers. When a children's ministry leader focuses on leaders, everybody thrives.
That's right.
So it's because you're ministering through people. And so, yes, that's a good place to start, is your volunteers.
You know, Vance, I remember people used to say, well, Josh, you must really love kids because you're a kids pastor. And I said, well, I actually happen to love kids, but please keep in mind that I work with adults who work with adults who work with adults who work with kids. Now, I love kids, and I can get in there and throw with the rest of them. I can be silly. I can be fun. I can relate to kids. But I work with adults who work with adults who work with adults who work with kids. And so that's always my primary. Yeah. I'm glad that we took that little pause there, because guess what? Here we are, 2026. We don't want to start focusing on the wrong thing and leaving things out. Okay, so as a recap, just for fun, we began this thing about moving this thing forward with the progress spiral. This is part 2. Now, we talked about what is this progress spiral? Well, it's a strategic framework for leaders to first evaluate. Then they strategize. Then they execute. We then move the water level up a little bit, only to come back around and go, that thing that we just executed, let's evaluate that again. Now let's strategize and let's now execute in even a 2.0 version. And then we're going to do it again and evaluate that down the road. So we're moving the water level up of all of our programs. We're seeking to make this process or progress improvement. We're looking to lead productively. But the first step is to evaluate. We spent the entire last podcast on that topic. Now, it was funny. Last week, you had mentioned to me, you said we, clicked off of that particular podcast. We had wrapped it up, stopped recording, and you said, Josh, it was as if this was all like clicking and making sense with you. And I was having some epiphanies, quite honestly. I was having some aha moments while we were live on the podcast. And you, Vance, were educating me. And so I just want to recap that real quick. This process of evaluation, we are we're going in and we're not making an assumption about an area, whether it's a program or whether it's a process. We're not making an assumption. We're saying, I bet that we probably don't have as good of a handle on this as we think we do. We pick one of those, and then we begin to go to the people that are being affected by that or are in that program or in that process. And we go, hey, can I ask you a question? And then you shield yourself because you know they're going to tell you that it kind of stinks a little bit.
Yeah, the wincing just a little bit.
Wincing just a little. And I knew I would even go so far as to say I might even lead with the following phrase, which I've done hundreds of times. You know, I am assuming that we have a blind spot. I think we have a blind spot here. I don't necessarily know, but I want to ask you because you have fresh eyes. And they're often like, thank goodness you're asking because it's kind of painful.
Right.
So that's the evaluation. Now, Vance, I got to be honest with you. This is something that has plagued me for decades. I am a ready, fire, and then I think about aiming. It's now hear me out. It's supposed to be ready, aim, fire. And I often kind of do the firing before I do a really, really thorough job of aiming. So stick with me. If last week's podcast was evaluation, that's kind of the ready piece. This week is the strategic piece. So we did an evaluation, and now we're going to really think and aim before we execute.
Yes, we are leaders. We're talking, this is the lead ministry lead ministry podcast. We are leaders here. And so too often when we find an issue, we just jump straight to execution. We're just fixing the problem. And when we do that, one of the things we ended the episode on last week, we said that prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice, right? And so if we're not really spending the time and letting this thing really soak in it, we can make a determination and fix something that ends up not being the right fix or the right way. And then we're back to square one. We didn't fix the problem. We just wasted a lot of time and energy and made people mad.
Yes. And the funny thing is, years and years ago when I was a high school chemistry teacher, this is hilarious. Somebody would ask a question, right? And I would just start laying into answering the question. Then like 9 times out of 10, I would pause in the middle and say, by the way, am I answering the question that you were asking? And sometimes they would go, not at all. That is not what I'm asking.
You are on a different track, buddy.
Right. And so then we as leaders, we can't just go on this long tirade of seeking to answer the question when that's not even the right thing. So through this evaluation process that we talked about last week, we are zoning in on what really is the problem. Then we can begin to strategize. So let's just take a look here. We got the core structure. We got 3 cultures. We got 3 actions. We got 3 steps. And so what are the 3 actions? Because last time we talked about the 3 cultures. You got parents, you got kids, you got volunteers. Well, now when it comes to these 3 actions, this one here is action number 2. Of course, action number 1 was evaluating. Probing and evaluating.
Well, it's because we got to do the alliteration. I mean, it is evaluation.
Help us out, please.
You're right. So but they're all P's, right? So it's action 1 is probing, and your 3 steps are people, process, program. Okay. And this next action is strategize, and what you'll see is these 3 steps are all S's. So you can take the preacher out of the boy, but the boy out of the preacher or the preacher out of the boy. You can't. Sorry, it's too deep. Okay.
Yeah, we got to go there. We got to stay. Listen, you can take the preacher out the pulpit, but you can't take the preach out the person.
Yeah, that's right. It's too hard not to do. So strategize. That is our next big bucket, so to speak, that now we've evaluated, we've built our list, we've diagnosed the problem, we have what we feel like is the true problem and not just the fruit of the problem. We've identified the root of the problem. And we've gotten to the bottom of it, because a lot of time we didn't even get into that last week, but I think a lot of this is to truly get to to the root of the root of the root, digging in deeper. And once you get to, we've got to the root, because if you fix the fruit problems, but you don't deal with often a root problem, you're still going to get bad fruit. So now we have identified the root problem. We know what's wrong. Now we can build a plan to make it right. That's what strategy is all about.
I love that. So once you know what's wrong, now it's time to build a plan to make it right. Well, this one here, it says our first S in Strategize is situation. Define the current reality clearly. What's broken? How do we get here? There's a little history there, Vance. And then understand who it impacts and how. So this is the first step of strategizing, is the situation. What is the situation at hand?
Right. So often what you have to do, again, we get our problem and then we move forward, we have a tendency to repeat our problems. So part of this is how did we get here? Let's trace this back. What is the genesis of this problem? What's the history, the context, the people that are the matriarchs and the patriarchs, influencers? Who does this impact? So I'm going to make a change. So this is not just about evaluating the situation of the problem, understanding where you are in reality of if I make this change, who has impacted by this change? Whose cheese am I moving?
That's right.
And why?
Yeah.
Right. So understanding who is really important in just as the how. The who is even more important many times.
This could go totally wrong. I haven't even talked to you about this. This could go really, really, really poorly. But I think this could be the event is like, put my seatbelt on.
Let's do it.
Here. What are we doing? Okay, so let's go all the way back to my very first year as a kids pastor. Please understand, we talked about last month where I was a long time ago that I was drafted, right? I was drafted as a kids pastor. I really didn't know anything about this profession except that I loved God. So I got drafted. I'm now in the game, and all of a sudden, I get approached by the executive pastor's wife. And she said, by the way, we need to start practice for the Christmas program. And I said, oh, okay, cool. And she said, and we do practice during Sunday school. And so you're going to need to start siphoning off kids from Sunday school to come to this practice. And I said, wait a minute. Help me understand here, because we're stopping Sunday school so that kids can practice for the Christmas program. She said, absolutely. I said, well, how come we just don't have practice on a Saturday? And she said, we don't have practice on a Saturday because nobody comes to it. And so since everybody is here, I am now stopping, in a sense, Sunday school to do practice. Now, this is a problem. Vance, this is not a good thing.
Yep.
And we have now, if we're talking about this situation piece, what is the current reality? The current reality is we are hijacking our number one discipleship vehicle through the local church, which is called Sunday school. We are hijacking that. What's broken? A Sunday school is being hijacked for 10 weeks. We're basically putting Sunday school on hold. Now, how did we get here? Because the executive pastor's wife, who used to be a choir teacher, really wants to get that choir itched.
Yeah.
And so she says it's not working on Saturdays. She's fighting an uphill battle. And so she kind of strong-armed things to a previous children's pastor, the person before me, and said, we have to do practice here. Okay. Who does this impact, Vance? Just in your wildest imagination, who is impacted by this, what we're going to call situation?
Well, I mean, the executive pastor's wife is primary, but by extension, the executive pastor, by extension, you.
Yeah, I'm being impacted by this.
Yeah, there's a whole chain reaction. You're kind of handcuffed. here
And
in many ways.
So, by the way, there's also the executive pastor himself. He doesn't want to have an angry wife on his hands.
He's in between. He's in the middle.
That's right. And so another piece to this player is the wonderful volunteer, Vance, who has worked diligently to create a Sunday school lesson, only to have all of the kids that she's going to be teaching, he's going to be teaching, be yanked to go do this other thing. Yeah. Not a good deal. But the idea then is, how did we get here? Who does this affect? This is part of that process. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, there's a show that I like to watch. It's called Mayday.
Huh.
And every episode they cover a major plane crash. All right.
Oh,
so
boy.
the first part of the episode is them reacting, how the plane crashed.
Yes.
Then the second part of the episode, which is so key in aircraft, crashes, is figuring out was this pilot error? Was it something mechanical with the environment? Was it mechanical? And this could be affecting, we've got thousands of 737s in the air. And if this was a problem that they all have, we need to know about it. And so this is what this is. This stage is the problem's been identified. The plane has crashed. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. Now the situation is, who all does this affect? How widespread is this? How did we get here? Is this a mechanical error? Is this something that somebody messed something up? Because if we don't truly identify it, we can't fix it in the future. What is the situation? How did this plane crash?
Yes.
That's the question that we're trying to ask. And practically, I'm thinking this through of, and I have a resource, and maybe I can get it over to you, Josh, sure, and we can share it with people. Sure. But it's basically a 9-box square, right? 9 boxes that you're working through this. And so when you get to a situation, you're writing this out. You're working through this problem. The plane's crashed. How did we get here? And what is the source of this problem? Mm-hmm. And who does it impact? Who do I need to influence? Good, bad, and ugly.
Kind of an interesting scenario that all of a sudden I'm like, how is it that we have all of our children leaving Sunday school on a Sunday morning? That was the situation. I'm like, why are we here? And then it just starts going a little bit deeper. Well, really then, we're on to the second S, which is solution. We got to fix this. So the big dream, what would success look like if there were no limitations? Okay. Involve your team in crafting the best possible path forward. Now, Vance, would it be okay if we went down this really hard road?
Ooh. Let's do it.
Of my little...
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So again, not having rehearsed any of this, what would you have done?
Well, I think I probably would have just quit. And said, we're moving on to a different church. Y'all can have your choir and your Sunday school. And
I'm not getting into a fight with the executive pastor's wife is probably what a lot of people would think.
Yeah. I think in this, what you have to avoid is triangulation, right? Because nobody wants to be, everybody's in the middle in this situation. I honestly think I would have had an honest conversation with my executive pastor. He's the one that needs to lead through this, probably not me. Yeah. If I try and lead through this, I'm not going to get the success that I need. And that's going to tell me I serve at his leisure and the lead pastor's leisure. It will inform me then of what their desires are and how much leeway I have. Oh, that's right. So I would present it as, hey, here's what I think our objective is, discipling kids. I've identified an issue that is quite personal because this involves your wife. We have kids that are leaving to go do choir. How would you suggest, do you think this is a problem, and how would you suggest that we go about this with your wife?
Yeah, I think that you did it better than I did. You did it better than me.
What did you do, man? I can't wait.
Well, I actually Well, the thing is that she called me on the phone on a Saturday morning and said, "Hey, we need to like this week we're going to start yanking kids from Sunday school." And I said, "Wow, tell me more."
Okay.
And she told me, and I said, "How did we get here?" We got here because nobody would come on a Saturday. And I said, is the children's Christmas choir, whatever, is it, if we replace Sunday school in this thing on the scales, does stopping Sunday school really, is that worth having the Christmas program? And I just made the case, this is not an equal exchange. We're stopping 10, 11, sometimes 12 weeks of Sunday school for a 45-minute program for grandparents to come and take photographs of their grandchild, because it's a beautiful photo op. And she goes, well, there are some unsaved family members that come to this. And I said, that's fantastic. But that's not weighty enough for us to like cannibalize our very own Sunday school program. And I said, we're like, at this point, we're not doing this. She goes, well, how in the world am I going to get Sunday or, the choir thing? And I said, I don't exactly know, but we're not eating our Sunday school program. And so then after that conversation, I ended up telling her husband next week, hey, had this conversation with your wife. Rather than doing an end around and trying to pull rank on her and go to him, I had it straight with her. And then I ended up talking to him later. I think that she probably gave him an earful. To his credit, he said, I'm going with what Josh is doing. And we actually that year, because she was unwilling to do practices on Saturday because she'd found that didn't work, we ended up killing the entire thing. And we had no Christmas program. And that was the deal. So the big dream was that we needed to deprogram, because we were so overprogrammed as a church, right?
Right. Well, I mean, and you're saying this is the problem, that our primary thing is discipling kids. And we've said that Sunday school is the way that we're going to do that here. Plane crash. That's not happening. Well, why is it not happening? It's because we tried to retrofit and add on something else that didn't fit and fall under the value. So you're right in that a lot of times this is the dream big is not always something we add, but sometimes what we subtract.
Yes.
This might be a readjustment of, what we've noticed is this thing that we've set out to do. And every program is with good intentions.
That's right.
The whole goal is to meet some kind of need, but ultimately go at the cost that it is costing us. It's not worth the investment, because it's taking away from the primary thing. And
it was something. It's just simply clearly mission drift, right? It literally was just like, oh wow, so you're super passionate about this, but coming at the cost of this, we couldn't do it. Well, step 3 is steps. So you've identified a problem, you've evaluated it. Now you have kind of the situation. Who does it affect? You've got, of course, next what was the next one? I forgot it. Solution. And now you've got some steps.
A solution.
So talk to us about this. Mm-hmm. And it says, break down the solution into clear, actionable tasks. Know the difference between a shift, which is an adjustment, and a change in direction. This is good.
Yeah. So break this down step by step. We're not trying to accomplish, and sometimes this is marginal movement. So why don't we start there? The difference between a shift and a change. Mm-hmm. When we've identified the problem, this might not be a major problem where we need to change from, we're not doing Sunday school anymore, we're going to a large group, small group format on Sunday mornings. That's a change of direction. Mm-hmm. A marginal a shift is an improvement of, hey, we do large groups, small groups, but right now we take all of our kids, we do large group in a room, and then it takes us 5 to 10 minutes to move them into separate classrooms to do small groups, and then they come back, and we end up losing 15 minutes of our time that we only have an hour and 15 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to now create pods in our big, large room and have everybody do small groups in our groups. That's a shift.
So the shift is really optimization. It's optimizing what you've committed to. And a change in direction is we're shooting this with 2 barrels of a shotgun. We're doing something brand new and different.
Yeah, we're starting something completely new. This is not an incremental steps. This is something, we're building another bridge here. This is a whole, we're not going to use the old bridge anymore. We're building a new bridge. But when you build that new bridge, the bridge just doesn't appear.
That's right.
The bridge, you have to dig into where the pylons are going to go into the river, and you have to excavate. And
this
you
is
have
the
to
steps.
Go down into bedrock before then you can build the pylons. And then on top of that is the girders that go across. And then on top of that is your asphalt. And then is your, depending on the bridge, whatever the support things are, there's an order and a step to it. It's not, we're just going to build a bridge. We have to break it down into clear, really actionable steps, A, B, C, D, that build on one another, that get us to the place that we want to go. The reason we do that too, and we'll get into that when more in C, which is complete, but we do the planning well so that later on others can join us and they can partake in being part of this change. If I don't break things down into actionable steps, chances are I'm going to be the one that is executing all of these new changes and steps. So think in steps.
I agree with this. And my mind naturally thinks in steps, and some people's minds don't. If you don't naturally think in steps, you need to gather around yourself somebody who does, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been around people who all of a sudden they're like, well, we're going to build a bridge. Let's build a bridge. And it's like, okay, well, there's an order of operation here. Or, as it relates to this story that I had earlier, we needed to first go, okay, do we want to make incremental adjustments and say, okay, we're going to have you take kids from Sunday school only every other week? Or we could have figured out something, or is it just lop it off? We're making a complete and utter direction change. And I chose not for trying to manipulate the situation to make it better and more workable for everybody. That would have been an adjustment or a shift, right? We have a model and we're going to try to tweak it. No, I said, blow it up. We are done here.
Yeah. Another word picture I would put with this is when I was growing up in my church, we had this program called Royal Rangers.
I've spoken
which is essentially
some Royal
Scouts.
Rangers. I've done some Royal Rangers speaking.
So I don't know. I don't want to brag, Josh, but I was Royal Ranger of the Year before.
I'm very proud of you.
Pretty big deal. But one of the things they taught us was using a compass. And how you use a compass when you're hiking or you're going, in terrain that's rocky and, has different elevations. You set your degrees, right? Mm-hmm. So we have what's called a heading. And in that heading, you pick a visual, a tree, a rock, a boulder that you set your eye towards. And then you take it step by step, keeping your eye on that object to maintain your heading.
Yes.
And so what we're doing is we're saying we're adjusting. Hey, I've got the heading. Yes. I know what direction we're moving forward. And now as we're moving forward, we have to plan the steps of where is that solid ground or is that boulder going to move? And as we're precariously moving forward. And then when you get to that point, that tree, now that I'm at that tree, I get a new heading, get a new bearing, I get a new visual point and start going after. That's how you maintain the same right direction. And so we've got the heading. Now we've got to work on the steps. How am I going to navigate this terrain to get me where I need to go?
Well, would it be appropriate for us to talk about this third one?
Sure. If you feel like we got time, let's do it.
Well, or should this be our next podcast?
Man, I'm just here for the fun. I'm just here with you, Josh. You tell me. Let's do. I'm game for whatever, man.
Well, this is good. Here's what I think. I actually think that we should put a pin in it right now, because so far what we've talked about is, number one, you have evaluated, you've done some probing, and you're like, we got some growth to do. You've identified a problem, and then you stop and you go, how did we get here? What in the world? What's the history of this? Who are the players behind this? And what are the steps that we would need? Picking a header, we got our eyesight on something, and we're going to need to slowly and methodically create the steps. And that is not as fun for some. Some people are like, we got a problem. I've probed and I've identified. We now need to just absolutely crush this. And it's willy-nilly. It's all over the place. But what I'm saying is slow it down and bring people in who can put forth together the steps that would be necessary. And so if you're taking our advice last week was go find a problem, go ask some people about that problem, do some probing. You're going to find out more than you bargained for, which is actually a good thing. And then before you go carrying on, sit down this week and let it soak. Think about it. How could we potentially get there? And again, maybe it's time to get somebody around you who is a strategic process thinker. How's that feel, Vance?
Yes, absolutely. Because more often than not, there's going to be one or maybe two of these three major buckets, which is the probing, the strategizing, and the completing that you're naturally good at. And there's going to be one or two that you're not. Okay, and I got to ask, what are you? What are you gifted at? Okay, so I am probing and strategizing are natural to me. The completing is the area that I struggle with. Okay. The tenacity on the six working genius. Yes. That tenacity. To hold piece. It through, to toe the line. And I would say that I am really good at making steps, and I'm actually really good at executing those steps. I can I'm not saying that I'm bad at it, but it's not like I don't do as good with the probe, right? That I only look at my own eyesight sometimes, Vance. That I'm not asking other people for their eyesight and what they see. Right. Okay, so last week, probing. This week, strategizing. Strategize. Mm-hmm. Next week is complete it and actually land the plane and change something. Watch this. Not crash the plane. Not crash the plane. It comes down to executing those steps that you've labored so hard on. That's right. And inviting other people into it. Other people. Well, gang, this has been fun. You heard my woes back in the day when I was first starting out, and we did execute that. We did execute a strategy, and we also, jokingly, we executed a ministry, as in we put it against the firing line and said this was no longer serving our needs. Well, gang, we're grateful that you're here. We're helping you to be as productive as you can in this good year of 2026. And we will come back next week with part 3 of this 3-part little series about completing, how you can actually execute the strategy that you were thinking. All right, gang, we'll catch you on the next one.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Lead Ministry Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and visit leadvolunteers.com for more episodes and resources. Thanks for listening.